Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking about something a little bit spicy. We are spilling some tea and talking about some controversial stuff. Now everyone knows about the age-old war between crocheters and knitters. For some reason there's just beef. Almost everybody has one that they prefer and most people don't know both. As somebody who is originally a crocheter, I love crochet. I swear I'm not a trader, but I have been learning how to knit to hopefully be able to maybe even make garments and things that combine both techniques. I have a few things to say about these new events that have occurred recently. And the ones that I'm talking about is the felted slipper drama that has been all over social media. It's been on Reddit. There's been discussions. There's been arguments. Let's get into it. If you don't know me, I'm Tina and this is April. I am your resident yarn goblin here to talk about crochet and knitting and whatever is happening in the arts and makers world. Now, we don't usually talk drama, but I've been getting a lot of stories sent to me recently about things people want me to talk about. So like the video if you're enjoying this type of tea spilling content and subscribe to stay notified for the next one. The main question that we're really tackling today kind of goes over the permissions of patterns and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And basically, when you translate a crochet or knit pattern into the other technique, is that allowed? Are you allowed to sell that? Okay, so this conversation blew up because of one primary example, and that is the felted sailor slipper drama. Recently, I don't know what has brought it about, but a lot of knit patterns are becoming very trendy. We're talking the Sophie scarf, Sophie hood, anything made by Petite Knit, the felted slippers by Annie Sews, and a lot of these patterns are getting remade into crochet versions. Now, there's a big debate about where we're crossing a line here. You know, as somebody who's crocheted forever and only recently dipped my toes into knitting, I get both sides. I genuinely love how accessible crochet dupes can make designs because not everybody knits and not everybody wants to knit. I myself get extremely frustrated because I'm so slow at knitting and so fast at crocheting, but you know, I can't always find a pattern for a knit design in a crochet version. But I can also understand why a knit designer might feel a little peeved seeing their top selling or best selling or just any of their designs that they are selling appear on Etsy as a crochet version and like 2 weeks later. And of course, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we are getting a little bit into the conversation between Annie Sews with her very well-known knitted sailor slipper pattern.
All right, a quick pause because I just looked up this pattern on Etsy so that I could have a picture of the pattern for reference while I was talking about it. And it says she has sold 1.9 thousand copies of this pattern, and it goes for $16 each, which I feel like I own this pattern, but I don't think I paid $16 for it. Maybe I bought it straight from her website. But 16 times let's just round up to 2,000 is $32,000 off this pattern. Is that right? People make that much money off patterns? I am not doing this right. Not to mention, she probably has a whole bunch sold on her website as well. So if we estimate like maybe she's sold half as much, she's probably sold the same amount on her website. Let me just take a gander here. If she sold 1,000 copies on her website, she's made $48,000 from this one pattern. That's crazy. That is insane. I need to make more patterns.
It's a pretty simple striped slipper. I've actually made them and they're very quick to work up, very easy, very straightforward. It's very large and then you throw it in the wash, and since it's fully wool, it shrinks down and felts into a cute little slipper. It's really fun. It's exciting, you know, to try out this new technique. Now, a creator named Aaliyah Loops, who is a crocheter, actually made a crochet version of the slipper, and I'll put a picture here. It does have a little bit of different shaping to it, but ultimately it's a striped slipper that is crocheted, it's large, and then you put it in the wash and it's felted down into a smaller size. Now, to preface, this is not a new design or new technique that has come about. This is something that people's grandmas have been doing for ages, and there's a lot of very similar patterns that are online. But I think just due to how trendy Annie So's pattern got and the proximity of the release of Aaliyah's crochet pattern, things got a little bit, well, essentially, after Aaliyah uploaded her pattern to Etsy, a copyright claim was made to get it taken down by Annie So's. And as we all know, Etsy's not a great platform. They don't really hear out both sides. They don't really do any research into anything. Not really looking out for their creators there. But as a result, the pattern was immediately taken down, and there wasn't really anything that Aaliyah could do to get it back up. There were a couple stories posted back and forth on their Instagrams. Basically, Annie was stating that she was in contact with Aaliyah and anyone else that might have been posting similar patterns on Etsy, and that they were in discussion. Meanwhile, Aaliyah had posted that Annie had in fact not reached out to her. So a lot of he said, she said going on there. I don't want to touch upon that, but I do kind of want to talk about, ultimately, is someone even in the wrong here? Now, I think the most obvious thing to point out here is that slippers are not new. The slipper shape has existed for forever, and many creators have released pretty much almost identical versions long before these two patterns have existed. Same thing with the Sophie hood scarf, which is also very trendy right now. I think it's just the season, it's getting cold, people want a little scarf, and a hooded scarf sounds really cute, and it is, and I've made one too. But ultimately, it is just, you know, a triangle with a hood and then a triangle down. It's a cute design, it is, and it's a really well written pattern, but fundamentally it's just like a rectangle that narrows down at both ends and has a hood on it. One person on Reddit wrote, "I honestly can't fathom why people are paying for that pattern in the first place when it's just a tapered strip of garter stitch." I think the thing that people really get annoyed about is that this kind of controversy and drama, if you will, always circles around very simple designs that are pretty recreatable if you know anything about crochet or knit. The question at the center of it all is if your final product resembles the knit version, but your construction process is entirely different, i.e. crochet instead of knit, is that still copying? Now, we do have to address that these techniques, if you don't know either of them, are very different. They definitely do not translate one-to-one. These stitches cannot be made the same way in crochet and knit, and there are a lot of things in crochet that you can't do in knit and vice versa. If you wanted to take the Annie So's design and change it to crochet, or any design that is knit and change it to crochet, you would have to figure out how it's constructed. You might have to construct it differently because knitting works a lot from side to side and crochet works a lot from top down or down top. You would have to adjust the construction. You would have to find stitches that match what the stitch technique is in the other technique. You would have to probably increase and decrease differently. You would have to redesign the shaping. One commenter on Reddit summed it up saying, "They're selling instructions for a process and not a finished object. The process is different and therefore the product is different. And legally, they say that you're in the clear, but the problem here is socially. People still argue about whether it's ethical or at least courteous to credit the original designer whose look inspired your piece." Which leads me to my favorite quote of the entire discussion. "Ideas are free, execution is expensive." I found this comment by somebody on Reddit, and the thread has actually been removed now, so I have no idea who to credit for that. But I thought that was an amazing quote. What it means is you can't own a slipper, you can't own a stripe, you can't own a striped slipper, you can't own a hooded scarf. You can own the written pattern that you created, the instructions, the formatting, the photos that you took, the whole process that you went through, but the idea behind it is not necessarily something that you can own. You can't just gatekeep striped slippers. Multiple people pointed out that every designer who gets upset about being copied was inspired by someone else in the first place. If you're able to make a design that is simple enough that someone can look at it and recreate it without the pattern, you know, it's probably also going to be created by somebody else, even coincidentally, right? But being able to be inspired by someone else's pattern and change it enough to make it your own and come up with something unique enough. That's how pattern design evolves, and that's how we get more creative in this space. One commenter wrote, "My personal opinion is that these slippers look extremely basic. Are we actually gatekeeping stripes on slippers here?" You know, you have to consider that it's not theft if like 30 people independently came up with the same shape, probably before Instagram even existed. The general consensus in the thread, and where most people in the community seem to land overall, appears to be that you own your own written pattern. You do not own the idea behind your written pattern. Someone recreating a similar look using a different technique is very normal, especially when your design is very basic. If you were talking something that's very complex and different and unique, and somebody copies that one-to-one and uploads their own pattern for it, that's a different story. But in cases like this, credit is polite, but it's not legally required, and it's not really something that you have copyright claim over unless they're using your pictures or parts of your pattern.
Hi, I'm interrupting again because I wanted to say that I did do my due diligence and reach out to both of these creators. I didn't get a response from Annie Sews, but I did get one from Aaliyah, and I think maybe she got flooded or messed with messages or anything, so I stopped getting a response. But she did say that she absolutely does not know how to knit, and she's not involved in the knitting community because she doesn't understand it and it's not her target audience, when I asked her if she had seen Annie Sews felt slippers prior to making her own pattern. So there's that.
Now, I'm assuming that my audience is mostly crocheters because I'm originally a crochet artist. But whether you crochet or knit, let me know what you think about this whole situation and, you know, pattern theft and all of that in general in the comments. Now, I do want to kind of talk about why this gets emotional every time. Crafting is personal. You know, design is personal. People come up with designs from their own ideas and there's pride behind that. But when money enters the conversation, people can also get very protective over their property. It's just somebody making a dupe for themselves. Nobody really cares. But the second someone sells a similar pattern and is also profiting off of that, suddenly everyone is a lawyer and an ethics professor over it. It's not just about the item. It's about wanting credit and recognition. It's about fear of losing your sales to this other person who you think, you know, copied your idea. It's about feeling accused maybe of copying them when you genuinely designed something independently of anybody else. And honestly, this kind of drama is just going to keep occurring, especially when trends spread instantly across TikTok and Instagram, and every cute knit pattern is getting a crochet cousin within a month now that knit is trendier than crochet. I'm sure the same happened when crochet was trendier than knit, although it doesn't translate as well, to be honest. But this is just another day of seeing this type of drama in the crochet versus knit war. But let me know what you think. Is translating a knit pattern into crochet totally fair game, no matter what, no conditions? Or is it copying? Should credit be expected? Or are we just gatekeeping stripes a little too hard? Let me know below. I'm curious where you guys land, or if you have made either pattern. I have yet to felt my Annie Sew slippers, but I was actually going to try making a crochet version myself. Actually, let me go get my slippers. I'm a crocheter, and I love crochet. I'm not a trader, I swear, but I am learning knitting. And I was actually recommended the Annie Sews pattern as a way to get into knitting and learn some of the stitches and the techniques. And you know what? I suck at knitting. I'm so slow. It takes so long. I've already cheated. I didn't do any of the sewing that she listed in her pattern. And instead of an I-cord, I just single crocheted twice all the way around the edge because I couldn't take it anymore. I just wanted to finish it. I still have to felt them, which is why they look huge. But here's my example. I have to say, as somebody who owns a pattern, the pattern is very well written. It has a lot of instructions. It has color combinations you can use. It has, you know, all the necessary gauges and everything. And it's, as somebody who is very brand new, this is like my third project ever, it made total sense to me, and I was able to create it with some small mistakes that were entirely my fault. However, I have not personally purchased a Leah Loops pattern, so I can't say anything about the crochet version, but as somebody who has crocheted for a very long time, I can pretty confidently say that I would be able to recreate this very easily in crochet. It's pretty simple.